Spent a good part of my career working as an engineering contractor. And if you've ever been in that world, you know exactly how fragile the work feels. Contracts always come with vague wording like expected length, 12 months, but subject to change at the employer's discretion. Translation: they can end your job anytime with no warning. Most of us just hoped that if we worked hard and did good work, we'd be kept on or even extended. But one afternoon, everything changed. Our manager, Greg, called me into his office and told me to gather 3 of our contractors. I wasn't even a full-time employee, just another contractor like the rest, but he handed me the task of telling them it was their last day. At 4 o'clock, I had to look those people in the eye and tell them they were finished, just like that. The look of disbelief on their faces still stings. These were people who had given months of their lives to the job, and in a single moment, they were discarded. Afterward, I confronted Greg, asking why we couldn't give them at least a little notice. He smiled, almost proud of himself, and said, "That's why we hire contractors. We can cut them loose whenever we want." His words sank into me like a stone. It wasn't just cold, it was cruel. And he said it to me and another contractor, as if we weren't human beings who could also be tossed aside at any moment. One of the men who overheard that conversation, my coworker Ethan, was one of the sharpest people I've ever worked with. He was smart, resourceful, and the kind of guy who could solve problems no one else could even understand. But Greg's smug little declaration lit something inside him. He didn't rant. He didn't argue. Instead, he quietly started job hunting. A few weeks later, he told me in confidence that he'd landed a new position. He wasn't planning to say a word to Greg, and he certainly wasn't giving any notice. Why should he? Greg had made it clear contractors owed the company nothing, because the company owed them nothing. The day Ethan decided to leave was unforgettable. It was a Friday, and the office was its usual mix of quiet chatter and clicking keyboards. Ethan was right in the middle of a critical project, something so complex only he really understood it. The silence that followed was deafening. Greg sat there with his mouth half open, staring at the equipment like it might magically explain itself. But reality hit quickly. Ethan was gone, and the mountain of unfinished work he left behind was now Greg's problem. Over the next month, our team scrambled desperately to untangle the project Ethan had been working on. It was a disaster. Deadlines slipped, clients grew angry, and the higher-ups demanded answers. Greg, the same man who had bragged about how expendable contractors were, suddenly had to explain why losing one single contractor had nearly sunk the project. The irony was brutal, and I can't lie, it was satisfying to watch. Here's the part that still makes me shake my head. If Greg had treated Ethan with even an ounce of respect, Ethan would have given him notice. He would have finished his work, trained us on the details, and walked away with everything in good order. But because Greg saw contractors as disposable, Ethan showed him just how disposable he could be. In the end, Greg learned the hard way that respect is a two-way street. If you treat people like tools, don't be surprised when they decide to put themselves down and walk away. Right when you need them most.
Subscribe, share, comment, like.